Hey gang, welcome back to Joe Daddy's Garage. Today's video is a continuation of the Triumph Bonneville T100 Scrambler project, and I've done two other videos on this where I built the fiberglass seat pan. I did another video where I used the Yes Welder plasma cutter to cut up some metal to make the seat bracket, and so this is a continuation of that. What I need to do is get this fender mounted above the tire, of course, and underneath the fiberglass seat pan. So, if you like videos like this, hit the subscribe button and the bell notification to see more. You may recall that when I first started on this bike, it had this bulletproof, super heavy duty, I don't know, custom made fender. I'm assuming whoever worked on it before made this thing. This thing is heavy. I mean, you can hear that. It's super thick metal. And along with that, it had the license plate mounted on it. I'll just show you real quick. I took apart all the wiring, but it had this bracket mounted up here. Let's just face it that direction. Had it mounted up here with the brake light mounted behind it, and this gave you the turn signals. Well, this whole thing just looks ugly. The license plate would have sat almost flat on the back of the bike, and it makes no sense at all. Now that we're done with this armor plating, I'm working with this section of fender. Now, this was provided to me by the owner. It has kind of a cool look to it. It's got a little kick up. Hopefully you can see that okay, if I can get in front of the camera right. It's got this little kick up in the back. Of course, I've already built the seat, but I've also already built the bracket. And I'll show you that from a different angle. So again, the previous segment I was showing this without the holes in it, of course, and I did cut this with that plasma cutter and cut this piece with the plasma cutter and then welded it in, so it's not going anywhere. The idea being that I was going to mount the fender, so I have 3 holes drilled into the fender that correspond to those 3 holes there. Along with that, I've added some more steel on the back side of this fender. Now this piece, never mind the washer, it's just hanging out. It's not even supposed to be on there. But this piece was part of the original fender. Like, it was designed to help hold the taillight or something, so that's why that hole is there. And I just welded that piece solid because it was only spot welded. And then I added this piece just to give it some more strength. Now I've modified the shape of the fender. I cut it, I angled it, and then I welded the 2 flanges back together on each side, inside and out. So this thing is pretty solid. It's not going anywhere. Now I'm going to bolt this up, and I want to show you what I have in mind for the turn signals. Okay, so again, I'm dealing with this monstrosity. You know, zip ties and stuff are fine, but they're not appealing whenever they're exposed. You know, they're visible. So you want to try to hide this stuff as much as you can. Now, obviously, on this kind of bike, that's not an easy thing to hide. So what I plan to do, and I think this is going to work out. This is going to be pretty cool. You take this off, and this bracket, you know, is wedged around this bolt here. I mean, I understand how they were trying to make it work, but you know, this is very complicated. Like, in order to get this bolt out of this bracket, you have to take this one loose and thread it away from that that bracket. So yeah, and I may not even need the bracket. I'm just trying to take it apart and just show you how this is put together. So I get that out. I can take, well, those are 2 separate now. Okay, so I'll leave this one on for now. This one, it has a split nut, by the way. Kind of interesting. So that's so they can go around the wiring, and also a split washer so they can get around the wiring, because I guess, you know, it would be really hard to get the nut to go around the plugs on the end. So I like that idea. And then, of course, I'm just going to remove this bracket entirely. Don't plan to use that. Okay, brackets out of the way. Now, I have this idea. and I think it's pretty trick. I think it's pretty cool. I've already talked to the owner about it, and well, let me show you. Let me get the camera set up so you can see what I'm going to show you. Now I will point out as well, we're not putting the license plate back here. The owner has looked it up. He found a bracket that you can mount the license plate on the side so it'll be out of the way. So that's going to clean up the whole back of this bike. Nothing big and chunky hanging out, right? Well, I was trying to find a way, where can I put these lights? So I'm looking at different ideas. I thought about putting it behind the shock mount, you know, because you already have that kind of hidden and protected somewhat. And these have a little, you know, flexibility to them. So I thought, well, maybe I could put that there or tuck it up underneath. And the owner didn't like that idea. He wanted them more traditional, let's say, on the fender. So I was looking at it, and he said, you know, what about on the fender itself? And I thought, well, the problem is this angle. You know, this is a curve. So, you know, if you mount it like that to match the curve, it's not going to look right. But I have an idea. What I'm going to do is take a piece of basically conduit, you know, just regular old conduit, and I'm going to cut it, and I'm going to angle it, okay? And then I'm going to make a hole right here on the side of the fender. I'll put the conduit on the inside, just make a little cup, and that'll flatten out to give me a, and then I can weld a washer to the end of the conduit on the inside, if you can visualize that, on the inside, and then basically, and I haven't tested this, but I'm sure it would work, I'll feed the wire down inside the conduit just to get a visual. Basically, the light will be in its own little cup. I mean, it'll be protected somewhat. It'll be in you know, just sticking out a little past this bar, but it'll have its own little shelter. And it won't look like this. It'll look like the fender opening, and it'll just be a little, kind of like Frenched in. That's the word. It'll be Frenched in. So that's what I'm going to do with those lights. What do you think of that? Yeah, I like it too. So in essence, this will be, it'll only stick out a little bit, you know, maybe 3/4 of an inch. Depends on how deep I want to set it. I don't want it too deep because then it won't fit right, you know, but I'll have a little recess in there, and that's going to look cool. That is going to look cool. So at this point, what I have to do is obviously cut the metal, get the angle right on the inside, drill a hole, open it up, blah, blah, blah. You know, the usual cut, fit, fabrication type stuff. So I've located where I want the hole to be on either side. So I'm just going to take a 3/16 drill bit. Drill that out. And then, using the conduit as a guide, I'm going to use this step drill and step up the hole. That should work. Deeper the hole. Verify the light will fit in that hole. I think that's going to work. Now the little cup that I want to make is just going to be this conduit. So I've already made one little piece. So as you can see, I cut that at an angle. So I am going to first cut the angle. I don't want to just cut an angle out here like if I wanted to reverse this. Let's say I put that on top and I drew a line to mimic the angle that I need. If I get that off a little bit, I'm going to start over. So I might as well just make the angle that I want right now up here. And once I make that cut, then I can bring this back against it again and draw my second line and cut it off. So I think that's pretty close. Of course, safety glasses. I'm using this diamond wheel to cut this. You can also deburr it. Now I'll just take this piece, the other piece that I have, as a reference point, lay it up on top, make sure the angle's pretty close, and draw my new cut line. I'll cut that off, verify they're about the same thickness, and it doesn't have to be exact because there's adjustment on these LED lights. In fact, once I get these in place, I may end up putting some shims inside here because I have to have something to stop it. And if I made the pipe so that, let's say it was deep enough that, well, where's the first one? So what I'm talking about here is if I made this too long, I would not be able to get the thread on, or the nut on the backside. If I make it too shallow, I'm going to have a lot of thread left over because there's nothing to stop it. I'll have a washer welded onto this end, but that's only going to be for the nut to turn against. The mating surface here would have to hit something, so I'll probably have to add washers or something inside of this to get the depth that I need so that it's in the right location in the fender. Okay, at this point I just want to tack these little filler pieces in. Make sure I have the lowest point, the pointy part taper out, facing towards the outside of the fender. And then as I look at it, try to make sure that it's as square as it can be. I can do some fine tuning once it's in place on the inside. I can sand it a little bit. So I'm just going to try to get a couple tacks in here. That looks better. Okay, so at this point what I'll do, I'll take the fender back off and I'm going to reshape that opening on the inside where the washer's going to sit so that the lights will sit nice and square in the opening. Okay, so both pieces are welded in, and like I said, I can fine tune these with the sanding disc to get the angle completely flat that I need. I noticed this one is tapered a little bit, but I can fix that up, no problem. I also welded them on the inside as much as I could, but I couldn't get to the top, so I welded them on the outside. You'll notice I left a gap. I did not weld them solid across the very bottom. The reason for that, moisture. I want to make sure air can come in there or get out of there, or water or anything, so I don't want to have it trapped in there. So what I'll do from this point, I'll take a sanding disc and I'll smooth up these welds, and then I will take my rotary file and use it on the inside to clean up the hole so that the opening is nice and smooth all the way in. I think it's going to look pretty slick. So there it is, fitting the light inside of the opening. And here's what I was talking about. I'm going to add this washer, weld that on, and then if I need to again, I'll add some shims on the inside, and that'll make that line up just where it needs to be. I made the washer, it's a little bit bigger than the threads, so that if I do need to manipulate this, I can, because it's really hard to get dead center on something, and I think that'll give me enough adjustment that I can correct anything it's out of line. While I'm here, I want to address these two small holes. Now I know people have asked me before, how do you weld shut, you know, a small hole? And there's a couple different approaches you can use on this. Some people will put a piece of copper underneath and use that as a backing for filling the hole. But what I like to do, if I can get away with it, is I like to weld, let's say, an edge. So I have my heat setting at B and my wire speed at 2 on my Lincoln 140T MIG welder. Now granted, this is some pretty good metal. Pretty good metal. But you can see there I'm just doing like little tacks to build the hole smaller, you know, to start filling it in. Now what you can do, if you have access to the backside, is come back and fill in any of those little low spots. So there's a couple little low spots in on the first hole that I did. You can just see a couple little shallow areas. And if you know, if you can flip it over and get to the backside, hit those spots as well. Not absolutely necessary, but it helps. So now what I'll do is take my sanding disc and knock this down. Okay, holes are welded shut, top and bottom. Now of course this will take a little bit of filler just to make sure it's all smooth, but you know, if you have good metal, that's all you really need to do. It can be a little more challenging with older or rusty, maybe some rusty metal, but I've been able to do that same technique and just kind of walk it around and fill in the hole. So here's the plan. I've already fed one wire through. I took just a lock washer, you know, a split washer, and I have 2 of those cut. So I will take one of those and just put around, you know, around the wires. Go over the body or the shank, let's say, or threads. Put that in place. And then I can take the other split washer that came with those, slip those over the wire, and then also the split nut. Slip that over. And ideally, I end up with a nice little light hanging out. I like it. I'll get the other one in place, see how that looks. Okay, brake light is mounted, turn signals are shimmed. They're not tightened down just yet. There could be just a little tweak that I could do on them, but I think it looks great. Now the wire for the brake light will go underneath the seat pan. No interference there. I'll have to do something, you know, with these 2 up here. Pull them off to the side, make a loop or something. and get them out of the way. But man, this is so much better than that big chunky thing that the other guy had put on there. But that's how it goes sometimes. So that should be the end of this video. I did ask for comments about the seat pan, and I had somebody mention that I should probably bring this back slightly. So I do plan on trimming that a little more, but I think overall it looks pretty good. The next thing I need to do, obviously I have to paint the tank, and I still need to work on some brackets. I don't know if I'll film that because I'll just be welding on tabs and stuff where the modules and stuff mount underneath or behind those covers. But overall, I think it's looking pretty good. So thank you for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Leave a thumbs up, leave a comment, let me know what you think about stuff like this. And until next time, take care of yourselves. See ya.